Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting, the Milton Board of Zoning Appeals for November 15th, 2022 to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 on our agenda this evening is introduction of board members, starting from my left.
Laura Bentley,
Adam Danella,
Hodge Patel,
Don Kurtz,
David Jackson, Zach Stafford.
Item 4 on our agenda is approval or amendment of the agenda. I'll seek a motion and a second to approve the meeting agenda as published by the City of Milton.
Chairman Patel, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
I'll second. Go ahead.
We've got a motion by Laura and a second by Adam to approve the meeting minutes for November 15th, the agenda for November 15th as published by the City of Milton. Is there any discussion?
No.
Seeing that there's no discussion, I will ask for all those in favor to say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Item 5 on our agenda is approval of the past meeting minutes. I'll open the floor for a motion and a second to approve the October 18th meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton.
I'll make a motion to approve the October minutes
I'll
as
second.
published.
We've got a motion by Don and a second by David to approve the October 18th meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the October 18th, 2022 meeting minutes as published, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 6 on our agenda this evening is primary variances. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to the decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for such decision is provided on these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and substantial justice is done. The first primary variance this evening is B 22-21. 16175 Birmingham Highway. Would staff please present?
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
The first item is 16175 Birmingham Highway, and the applicant is seeking the following variance: to allow an existing house to remain in the City of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. The site, you guys see on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. The site is a 1.61 acre parcel located on the east side of Birmingham Highway. The property is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay district. Applicable setbacks for the lot are 60-foot front, 50-foot rear, and 25-foot side. The house was built in 1961 and is conforming to the AG1 setback requirements. The applicant is requesting to allow the existing house to remain in the City of Milton's 50-foot understood buffer and 75 impervious setback. Impervious surfaces are prohibited in the 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. Therefore, a variance is requested. Solid Waste Holdings bought the subject property in 2022. Per the applicant's letter of appeal, The applicant is proposing to renovate the existing home within the original footprint and is proposing an addition outside of the 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. The site plan shows there are state waters in the northern part of the property, a 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback apply to the state waters as shown. Approximately 1,007.5 square feet of the original house and driveway fall within the 75-foot impervious setback and 50-foot city of Milton undisturbed buffer. Less than 1 square foot of the existing driveway encroaches the 25-foot state buffer. Milton City Development Engineer stated, the city of Milton does not have purview over the 25-foot state buffer, and any relief would have to go through the state. However, the house was built prior to the 25-foot state buffer's existence, leaving the 1 square foot encroachment into the 25-foot state buffer setback would not adversely impact the state waters. The size of the proposed addition is 38 by 21 feet and will be located on the rear of the home, completely outside of the city of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback, as detailed in Exhibit B. So here's the 75-foot, excuse me, right here. My hand's too big, right here. 75, and here's the 50, and then here's the 25. The Design Review Board deferred this application at the October 4th DRB meeting. The DRB requested the applicant provide renderings and material samples for the proposed house renovation for the next DRB meeting, which the applicant obliged to. The renderings were presented at the November 1st DRB meeting and were received positively, as shown in Exhibit C. The building materials list is shown in Exhibit D. The adjacent support map is shown in Exhibit E, and letters of support are provided in Exhibit F. And right here, you have the subject site, the direct owner to the east, 1171 Bream Drive, and then 1159, 1153, and 1142. And I'll let the applicant answer this homeowner. I believe he told me they reached out but didn't hear anything. And directly to the south is the Bream Ridge detention pond. So it's not a house that's sitting right there, right behind them. And here are the letters of support from the 4 neighbors. Here are the photos of the existing house. And here are photos pointed north towards the stream. As you can see, drawing a blank, Shiva. What is it called? Where they have the silt fence? That's what it is. Okay.
Yep.
Silt fence to protect the rest of the vegetation. The DRB met on November 1st and had the following comments. DRB recommends approval of this variance request for the building material samples and renderings presented at the meeting. Staff comment. City Development Engineer, leaving the portion of the house that is within the City of Milton 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback would not adversely impact the state waters. The wood frame accessory structure that does not meet setback requirements is completely outside the City of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer, and staff supports removing it based on its size and distance from the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. If approved, staff recommends the following condition. Per the site plan from Brumlow Reese and Associates Incorporated, received on September 6, 2022 by the Community Development Department. Any questions for staff?
So is there any variance to that wood framed structure?
It's being removed. And we met with the applicant at the beginning. That was his intent.
Okay, so we're not doing anything with that.
Correct. Yes. And the city development engineer was receivable to it because it was far away from the 50-foot buffer, and they're just going to replace it with grass, is what we were told.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Can you clarify the 50-foot existing wood frame? They're looking to remove that, is that correct?
Yep, right here. Give me a second. Here's the wood frame structure right here. And it's and the city development engineer was comfortable enough from the distance to the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. We were okay with them removing the shed rather than seeking a variance. It was in the 50-foot. The development engineer told me he would prefer it stayed.
And the addition that they're looking looking to build is completely outside of the 75-foot buffer.
Correct. It's 38 by 21 feet. It's addition right here in yellow.
Michael, did you have, I'm sorry, what you said? The city engineer said it wouldn't impact the state waters. Do you remember any further comment about that at all? Is there, I guess I could read this, but is there much of a slope back there? Let's see, those are 130.
Yeah, the contours definitely slope down towards where the rest of the vegetation is.
Yeah.
We're talking to Jerry, the development engineer. When you start removing things inside the buffer, it creates more of an impact than just leaving them. Was kind of the summary I got from talking to Jerry.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
If we're approving the site plan that was submitted, it shows the existing wood frame building on that site plan. But if we're requesting to have it removed, probably need to put a condition on there
It's a good point, Hodge. Yeah,
clarifying that to
Yeah.
remove it. Okay.
absolutely.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Michael. Would the applicant please come forward and present their application? We'll have a combined 10 minutes for the applicant to make their opening presentation for public comment and support, and for a closing statement from the applicant. There'll also be additional 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, it's, you want a home address or you want just a business address?
I'll defer to.
Okay. Jonathan Barrett with Solid Water Holdings at 2933 Cherokee Street, Kennesaw, Georgia.
You want to tell us a little bit about your application and the reason for your request for the variance?
Absolutely. So we purchased the home earlier this year with the purpose of repairing it and bringing it up to the community standards. And when we came in with the original application for a permit, realized that there was the structure, part of the structure was inside of the buffers. Now, the house is just inside the 75-foot impervious buffer, and the retaining wall and 1 foot of the driveway are what are actually inside the 50-foot stream buffer. So we looked at it and they said, we can't approve it as is. We need a variance. And the way we're set up with it financially and everywhere else, there's a hardship if we don't do a grandfathering of the existing structure. So that's why we're here. Our intent immediately upon finding that out was the previous people hadn't really taken care of the site. So we secured the property, we turned around and we put up silt fence. And then we started looking into the vegetative state of the buffers and everything there. And frankly, they were very well established and stable. And so what we looked at is if we can not touch those and avoid those. And then, after talking with staff and having great conversations, was putting the existing shed / barn in the back where it's not in the buffers for the stream, but it's in the impervious setback. We thought we could remove that and at least it would have a minimal impact. And that way we're actually increasing the buffers overall for the whole site. In addition, I have talked about putting an addition on the back that we would do in a full permitting process with the city. But that is outside of, if you saw the example that was up there, outside of any part of the buffers and any part of the setbacks. And we did that just because and that's why we got the support of the community directly behind us. And the person to the north is, that parcel is owned by Perry Homes. And I believe they own a large portion of land up there for development, and they've just not responded. I don't think they care, but everybody else we've talked to and, kept it where we didn't have opposition. Because we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to have a house that's livable and the condition it's in. And honestly, I love Milton, so I've looked at, moving in here and I'm going, to do this, I want to make sure that, we make the community better and that we bring this up to your standards and just come out with a great house. Take an older house. And the good news is it was a bigger house and it was a big, ranch that it can be done without any, craziness to it and just be an addition to the community. But that's the hope. And, the only thing I would say to, hardship on the variance is in purchasing it and thinking, okay, we're going to turn around and get a permit, do this, repair the structure, put in some fantastic finishes and builds and bring everything up to code. That's the financial model we put in before, whether we're in a recession or not in a recession. It's the model we have to do it and trying to avoid the hardship with that. And also for the community and the buffers, we're looking at it going, this existing structure, if you're great with the variance on it, that we turn around and it's approved, it keeps that buffer stable. It's kind of like there's the little piece of the retaining wall, which is about 4 inches wide and it goes for about 7 to 10 feet. If we tried to remove that piece, we would just have to, and it just tear it up. And that's not what our intent was. So, that's why we're here, just trying to do the right thing about it and be compliant with the community. And actually more than that, like we've gone above and beyond with the renderings and the other things we've done, the sample boards and things, is that Milton's a great city. And we want to do something great with this house. And we want to give it a second life. And personally, I would look at being up here and being your neighbor. So just throwing all that out to say in a nutshell. If I need the full 10 minutes, I don't think so. But if you have questions, please.
Michael, can you put up the map with the check marks, the letters of support? Mr. Barrett, there's a property that I believe is to the north of you. It's right where the 372 is above your site.
Right, correct. On the same side of the road you're talking about.
Battle Road. Have you reached out to them? And
We have. That's the parcel that, from my understanding, is owned by Perry Homes. And then they own the really big parcels right behind that as well. So they own the parcel to the right and then 2 huge parcels to the left. I'd say they have at least 40 or 50 acres there in the assemblage.
And what was their response?
We've not had a response from
haven't?
them.
Okay.
No. I know they have a commercial intent for a neighborhood at some point, I'm assuming, or like that, but they've not responded to us on it. The neighbors have been great in the neighborhood, actual people, not corporations. They've been wonderful, and we didn't just send out letters, we went door to door. So that was trying to do, they go the extra mile there as well.
Have you talked to the city engineers about incorporating flow wells onto the property to take over some of that that's already in the setbacks?
So what we did is we turned around and they had recommendations that could be a possibility, and and we basically put it in the application right here that we said, we're open to that. And if we're agreeable to whatever staff recommends on that and where they come out in the end, because the bottom line is we want the stream to be well taken care of. And the whole intent here is to not disturb it further. Right. Does that answer? I hope that's a good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Well, if in fact the city engineer did not think there was an impact on the stream, then we can assume that he would not later on come back and say, you have to put flow wells in, I would think. Have you had that conversation directly with the engineer or?
I haven't, the staff has, and I've not
Heard
had that
that,
direct
but-
conversation.
Okay.
Basically, during the permitting, if their disturbance is more than, 5,000 square feet, we will look at their water quality and stuff like that. So we will take care of that during the permitting process.
as part of the standard permitting process that you'll review that, but we wouldn't necessarily need to put a condition on that.
Yep.
Unless we decided to. Any other questions for the applicant? I appreciate it. If you'd like, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in support?
No, nobody's speaking in support or opposition.
or opposition?
Yep.
Mr. Barrett, if you'd like to make any closing remarks, you're welcome to come back up.
Do want to say that your staff has been exemplary, and they've also been thorough. But that's okay, because with excellence, there's that process. So we just, we want to do this well and be an addition to the community. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? I'll close the public portion of this application and open the floor for a motion and a second on V22-21.
I'd like to make a motion to approve V22-21.
Second.
With the conditions.
Oh,
Conditions, yeah.
with conditions. Yeah, where is that? Oh, with conditions per the site plan from Blow, Reese and Associates received on September 6, 2022.
David, do you want to add the shed to be removed, as Hodge said?
Yes. And a condition to remove the shed that's within the 75-foot. Yeah. Impervious setback.
Existing footprint.
No, because that's per the site plan. Right?
Be in the permit.
Yeah.
So let me restate the motion. We've got a motion for V22-21-16175 Birmingham Highway. Motion by David and a second by Zach with the following conditions. Per the site plan from Brumblo, Reese and Associates received on September 6, 2022 by the Community Development Department with the condition that the shed that is shown on the plans is to be removed. Any discussion on that?
The only thing that I would say is it meets all 4 criteria and it's going to improve the property. And it's not going to disturb the stream. So I think that's why I think we should approve it.
Yeah, I think this application meets all 4 of our considerations that we have in terms of health and welfare. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary in terms of approving it. This property has been there for quite a long time. The stream could have moved over the years, and that's pushed that buffer over a little bit. And I think by having the structure that's in the buffer removed is a further enhancement to the overall property and the buffers.
I would just question if the site plan adequately covers the fact that the renovation is going to remain within the existing footprint. I don't.
It's not based on the picture, because that highlighted picture shows at
In addition,
the addition onto the back.
but that's
But
not
it's
Not
not
on
in
the
the
site
buffer.
plan.
right. But that's not part of the variance. The variance is just to approve the house.
Right.
That's right.
So
If they were going to build in the buffer, they would have to come back and request another variance because it's not on the plans.
What I was saying is that the intent, as I understand it, is that the renovation will remain within the existing footprint of the house. But I don't know that that is obvious from the site plan. If it is, someone would have to point it out to me. And I'm wondering if that should be added as a condition to make sure that the renovation stays within that, because that's what we're approving, right?
no, we're just approving the variance that the original house
Right.
can be in the
Yeah, but he's,
buffers.
but the original house, he's redesigning. Right? The way it read in the beginning, you said the renovation is taking place on the existing house. All I want to make sure is that the existing the footprint of the existing house is not being expanded upon.
Right. So here's the existing site plan that he submitted, Exhibit A. And then when he was deferred by DRB to provide renderings, he provided a little drawing on the existing plan showing the addition in yellow, completely outside of the,
Yeah,
any buffers.
maybe I'm not being
So
clear.
I think what you're talking about is having the encroachment be no more than what is shown on the site plan.
That's another way to put it, but typically what we say is that the new building, if it is a renovation / new building, will not exceed the existing footprint of the old building, which is what we are approving. And then also, in past cases, we've asked for something like a foundation survey. Is that not applicable in this, at this point? Because that would mark the
Right.
point of the existing house, or is this no foundation or something? I don't
Yeah,
know.
from talking to the zoning manager, we're only recommending foundation surveys for new development into a buffer, not existing.
So I'm not objecting. All I'm suggesting is maybe another condition that just clarifies that the structure as being renovated will not exceed the site, the site plan or the site surface, site plan, or if you say it, of the existing structure. That's all I'm suggesting, is that as an additional condition. Unless it's clear somewhere.
My viewpoint is that we're taking the site plan, so if there's any expansion outside of that footprint that's on the site plan, they would have to come back and
Part of the
request a
permit
variance
process.
for it.
Okay, what's not clear to me, Haj, is that
That's exactly
that this
what they're doing.
site plan is showing me the existing plan with the new plan on top of each other. I don't know how to read this. That tells me that.
So, well,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. The problem, I guess, that I'm trying to figure out is, does that, you see how the part of this is extending back here? They're building on an additional part of the house that fits within all the setbacks, no big deal. So how do we, based on what are you trying to limit that piece because it's not on the site plan?
No, I'm trying.
Or how, that's what I'm trying to
Can
figure
I
out.
step,
it's just
can I
what's the
step in
best way
here for
to-
just a second? I want to make clear, and I don't know if this is clear from what I'm hearing. If you approve it per the site plan, minus the wood thing, if the site plan doesn't show the renovation extension, they can't do that without coming back and changing that condition.
Right, and that's part of the plan that's
So,
been approved by the DRB.
As
or
written,
Recommended.
as read, they would not be able to do that yellow extension without coming back. It would be in the existing footprint as shown in this plan. If you want them to be able to do extensions or renovations within the setbacks, but not as shown on this plan, they'll have to come back, or you'll have to change the wording of what you've written. So as it's written, it is within the existing footprint, because the site plan shows the existing footprint and only the existing footprint.
We know that. I mean,
Well,
that's what I'm asking. I don't know that I know that, or we know that.
Well, I guess if someone represents that,
Here's my comment. I would disagree with that for the point of they're not allowed to do it. What my point would be is they do not encroach any further into or in addition to what is already being encroached. And that's what we're approving per
No.
this site plan.
that's not what
But
you've
it's-
read.
Correct.
You
No, I know.
can- you
And
can
that's
do
part of
that.
my discussion. This is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
The way I would approve it personally, and this is up to y'all to decide, I would approve it just as to the encroachment on the site plan with the removal of this existing wood frame building and not to encroach or, any more than what would be shown on this site plan.
The variance that they're requesting is for the existing house to remain within the undisturbed buffer and the impervious setback. So that's all we need to approve.
The addition would be a permitting process outside of this because it does not encroach.
But if you're talking about the footprint of the home, per the site plan, then they would not be able to do anything other than what's in this exact footprint that's drawn here.
Yeah.
As Don
Inside
pointed
the
out.
setback. Outside the setback, they can do
You-
whatever. the
If
permit
you
allows.
want to get more detail and say, per the site plan, only with respect to that which is shown in the setback, that would limit the application of the site plan to only those portions that are in the setback. They can do whatever they want outside of the setback, if that's what you're looking for.
I don't want to belabor this. All I was looking for was a simple additional recommendation that said the renovated building will not exceed the existing footprint. That's all I was looking for. Because it's not clear to me, but that's all I was looking for.
Right, and I guess it's up to David who made the motion. I would disagree with that part of it because that doesn't allow them to add on to the house as shown in these
Oh,
pictures.
with the exception of the new building.
Correct.
You're right, you're right.
So however you make your motion, if you want to restate it or withdraw it and restate it in a different way, it depends on what you want.
How is, how is approving the variance for the existing house to remain where it is? Why would that have anything to do with what they wanted to do after the fact?
Well,
After we approve that it's okay for the house to remain?
There's different wording to allow the house to remain as opposed to as shown on the site plan, because as shown on the site plan requires exactly what's shown there to be the state on the property. And if you add something, that's not what is showing in the site plan.
Okay, so
Reason you do it to the site plan is so someone can go out there, oh, that's not on the site plan, you can't do that.
so if we approve this with the existing house to remain in the setbacks, and then, so that's their variance, then they can come and build outside of those setbacks, correct?
Yes?
So if I change my motion to just allow this variance without the site plan, they can do whatever they want to outside of the setbacks.
Yes?
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
You have to withdraw your second.
What are you saying?
Oh, yeah.
You would-
I withdraw my second.
Okay, I'll open the floor for another motion in a second.
I would like to make a motion to approve the variance to allow the existing house to remain in the city of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. And for the existing wood frame building that is in the impervious setback to be removed.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that?
I just want to make sure that not using this, again, staff, do you see any flaw with that?
No.
Okay,
So case by case basis, I don't see much complications in this one.
okay. So we're making it harder than we need to. So you're okay without referring to the site plan on this? Were the neighbors shown a site plan? I just want to make sure.
Well,
They have already made up their mind to have that addition in the back. They can't have it really in any other place.
Okay.
Yeah, the support letters say the variance package and site plan were reviewed when they got support letters.
Okay.
so I guess just being more general under the circumstances, if they, I mean, they could encroach, you know, it would obviously be against the code, but they could do it incidentally, accidentally, however you want to say it.
Recommend
And they would have to
foundation
get
However,
survey for
you're,
the-
how, like,
the
what would,
addition.
yeah, how would you avoid that happening?
Foundation survey for the addition that they're gonna build.
They would have to get a new variance if they're going to encroach anything.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, from a monitoring perspective, what does the city do to keep them from doing that? They would get it, would we make that part as a condition, do a foundation survey for the addition? I'll add that.
No, because I think that's totally outside of this request. I think if they want to come back and say they want to build into the setback,
Something else.
then come back. But let's not worry about it tonight.
Is there any further discussion on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my point is just a deterrent. But I mean, I get where you're at.
So we've got
They've
a,
already said that that they aren't going to disturb that area. And if they do, city can,
They have
Fight
to
'em.
get a permit.
right, they have to get the permit.
Someone's going to have to come out there.
And
and-
inspections and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, so.
on V 22-2116175 Birmingham Highway. We have a motion from David and a second from Zach to allow the existing house to remain in the city of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback with removal of the shed structure that is shown on the Brumbelow, Reese and Associates plans that were submitted September 6th, 2022,
You're not referring the site plan, right?
just for removal of the shed.
But removal of the shed, okay.
David, did I state that
Yes.
correctly? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you and continue to work with the city staff. The second primary variance this evening is V 22-23160 Deer Haven Lane. This was deferred by the board last month. Staff, please present.
The address is 160 Deer Haven Lane, and the applicant is requesting the following variance: to allow proposed tennis court to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback. The site is a 2.05 acre lot located in the Deer Haven Preserve subdivision. The property is zone AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay district. Applicable setbacks for the lot are 60-foot front, 50-foot rear, and 25-foot side. The applicant is requesting to allow the proposed tennis court to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback. The Deer Haven Preserve final plat is shown in Exhibit A and shows state waters in the rear of the property. A 50-foot city undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback apply to the state waters per section 20-426-1 and 2. The applicant is proposing to build a tennis court that encroaches into the 75-foot impervious setback, which is prohibited. Therefore, a variance is requested. The lot overall has a steep drop in grade towards the rear of the property with an overall site drop of 38 feet. The applicant met with city staff in March 2022 to discuss various options for a proposed tennis court into the 75-foot impervious setback shown in Exhibit B. The applicant was still in the conceptual stages of the single-family home design when the applicant met with city staff in March 2022. City staff recommend moving the house forward as much as possible, which would reduce the 75-foot impervious setback variance amount needed for the proposed tennis court. The applicant agreed with city staff and began working on a proposed plan that moved the house closer to the front of the property line. In doing so, this would require the septic drainage fields to be located in the rear of the property and inside the 75-foot impervious setback. Fulton County Health Department denied the applicant's septic plan to be located in the 75-foot impervious setback in July 2022. At the October 18th BZA meeting, the applicant provided two proposed plans. Option 1 had a total of 75 feet, a total of the 75-foot impervious encroachment of 2,381 square feet, shown in Exhibit B, while the option 2 had a total of 1,095 square feet encroachment, shown in Exhibit C. Option 1 had the proposed pool located directly behind the home and is aligned with a tennis court. As you can see here, here's the pool and the tennis court. And option 2 had the pool shifted to the left over here. And that also showed a smaller amount of encroachment at 1,095 square feet. Petition was deferred by the BZA at the October 18th BZA meeting, and the applicant resubmitted a singular revised plan with a total encroachment of 484 square feet. This was a reduction from option 1 of 1,095 square feet and option 2 of 2,381 square feet. The singular revised plan has the same layout as option 1 with a pool and tennis court oriented linearly. Comparing the singular revised plan, you can see the house footprint has moved forward compared to options 1 and 2. The house footprint moved from 65.2 feet to 60 feet in the northern direction. And the western corner of the house moved from 64.4 feet to 61 feet towards the cul-de-sac in a northwestern direction. The overall lot coverage was reduced from 21.6% to a total of 19.2%, with an overall reduction of 2,907 square feet. In addition, the applicant is proposing a landscape plan that includes 24 thuja green giants that are between 10 and 12 feet in height, as shown in Exhibit H. And the tennis court conceptual and lighting plan is detailed in Exhibit I. Here's the adjacent neighbor support map, showing support from 140 Deer Haven Lane to the east, 180 Deer Haven to the lane to the west, and 15036 Freemanville to the south. And finally, they have support from the Deer Haven Reserve HOA. Here are the letters of support. This photo is the view from the street. This is view towards 140 Deer Haven to the east. This is towards 180 Deer Haven to the west. And this is towards the stream in the back. Right here, and you can see the silt fence and tree save area along the edge here. And here's some additional photos of the site where you can see it's completely graded. And the applicant provided an aerial of the overall site for us, which I assume is from a drone. The DRB met on October 4th and had the following comments. The DRB recommends approval of this variance request and supports option 1, and that the architectural design of option 1 is more aligned and architecturally superior than option 2. And if approved, staff recommends the following conditions. For the site plan from Keystone Land Surveying Incorporated received on November 9th, 2022, water quality treatment to be provided for all new impervious surfaces as determined by the city development engineer through the permitting process, landscape screening around the tennis court to be provided as proposed, and provide a foundation survey during the permitting process of the tennis court. Any questions for staff?
The applicant had worked with you after our deferral from the previous meeting, and it appears from the latest plan that's being submitted, there was a tremendous reduction in the overall impact to that buffer area. Is that a reasonable statement?
Correct, yes. So if you wanted to keep from the option 2 had 1,095 square feet and the pool is kind of the side. So let's just say from that plan to where they are today, they reduced it by 611 square feet. And it's even greater if you consider the 2,381 square feet, but I went with the one which I felt was more seriously considered last meeting, which was the least amount of encroachment.
The landscape screening, part of their letter of appeal, they were talking about 8 to 12 foot evergreens, and then y'all got, as your proposed here, 10 to 12 foot green giants. Would that have been possibly recommended by the city arborist, or did they take a look at these things? You know, I mean, if it's screening, I mean, I feel like 8 feet is not really screening. 10 to 12 feet plus would be really screening. I mean, I don't know how all the fence is around the tennis court, but it's got to be at least 8 feet. You know,
Right.
typically.
It better be
They're
higher than that.
Right, 8 to 10 foot fence.
Right.
So I would expect the trees to be kind of at least 10 to 12 foot.
Yeah, those are
At
sizable.
least
and-
the height of the fence, you know, for the purpose of screening.
Yeah, I don't know if the applicant answered how tall the fence is, but for buying green giants from a backyard, anything over 6 feet is hard to find. So if you can find 10 to 12 feet high, thuja green giants, that would be pretty sizable screening.
Yeah, right there, it says 10, the fence is 10 feet.
Okay.
Michael, can you give us a little more information on the city's process for approving tennis court lights on a private lot?
Right. So in essence, the lumens, or what you want to call it, foot candles, cannot exceed 1 foot candle at the property line. And from talking to Marty, it'll be 0 at the property line. So he's going to propose something that's even farther than what the code requires. I can let him expand on that regarding the lighting plan. But the code is cannot exceed 1 foot candle at the property line.
So when we put our notification out, either on the sign or snail mail, does it say the tennis court is lit, a lit tennis court?
It just said tennis court.
It just says tennis court,
Right.
so it doesn't say that it will be lit.
It does not, yeah. And staff was comfortable with that because as long as it met the code requirements of the foot candles in the permitting process. And Marty, from talking to him, said it'd be even reduced to 0 at the property line.
I would just say on this nice color version that we have that you don't have up there, it's impressive that you see now it's only this small red area. That would be an encroachment. We don't have a big, I don't know, we can't put that up there, so visually.
It's there.
It's got a smaller version.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah,
I got
just
it, okay.
smaller-
I was looking at the big
smaller
one. Okay,
version,
fine.
yeah.
So all I want to comment then is that's great. So it's just that small area that now is impacting. So people watching the video can see that.
And how much is that red area?
484 square feet.
Does staff have any concerns about during construction, further encroachment into that area for construction or any recommendations
Yeah,
that
that's
we
really,
should consider?
yeah, that's why we require the foundation survey. I recommend it. So it confirms that he's not going farther than 484 square feet into the buffer. And I can maybe let Marty expand on what his, I know he builds a lot of homes, what he would recommend to have the least amount of encroachment and keep it at 484 feet if possible.
So hypothetically, if this plan was approved, how much of an encroachment during construction would potentially go further into that buffer?
No more than 484. That'd be the maximum.
Okay. And so that the line that we're showing there, the bottom of the red line, is that where we're proposing the tennis court, the backside of the tennis court would be?
Correct, yeah. It just goes across linearly right here.
And just to be clear, that's the impervious setback. So they can
Put
still
trees.
dig in the area.
Yeah.
They just can't leave impervious material there.
Okay.
So the construction period is maybe not as big of a concern in the 75-foot. I mean, it may be, but I'm just saying it won't impact the final product.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Michael. Will the applicant please come forward and present their application? We'll have a combined 10 minutes for the applicant to make an opening presentation, public comment from anyone wishing to speak in support, as well as a closing statement from the applicant. We'll also have an additional 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Good evening and welcome back. Would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, thank you. My name is Brent Arrington. The address is 160 Deerhaven Lane.
I'm Marty Aker, 4045 St. Michelle Lane.
Thank you. You want to tell us a little bit, I know you were here last month, we've kind of talked through a lot of it, but again, this is a new meeting. Just kind of bring us up to speed in terms of your process and what you've done in terms of working with the city staff on reducing.
Sure, thank you. First off, thanks again for your continued time and consideration for this, and thanks for the opportunity to present an updated site plan. As you can see, since the last meeting, we have made significant changes and been able to significantly reduce the total area of encroachment into the 75-foot setback. Just to highlight some of the changes that we made to accomplish this, we went back to the drawing board on the floor plan of the house itself, redesigned that to lessen the overall footprint of the house. This decreased the depth of the house slightly, also decreased the width, which allowed us room to move forward a few more feet without encroaching into the septic field in the front.
Sorry to interrupt you. Michael, can you put the site plan up real quick? Thanks. And if you don't mind referencing kind of the direction and what you did, that'll be helpful. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So if you can see from the footprint of the house, the depth, so the distance from front to back decreased by a foot. The side to side footprint decreased by, I think, like 6 or 8 feet. The overall, I guess, result of that is that we were able to then slide the house forward another 5 feet without encroaching into that septic field in the top right corner. In addition to that, we reduced the footprint of the pool as well to make it a narrower footprint. So it's now, I think originally it was 14 feet wide, it's now 12 feet wide. And then additionally, we reduced the footprint of the court itself. So we went from a standard 120 by 60 footprint for a court, which is sort of standard size for a tennis court, down to 114 by 56. So 4 feet from front to back on the site plan, 6 feet from side to side. All that together allowed us to pull the court forward another 14 plus feet from our original option 1. And originally, it was the deepest point of incursion was like 23.5 feet. It's now 9.1 feet at the deepest point. And then again, as already noted, the overall area is reduced from 2,300 something in the first plan to 484 in this one. Also, like in doing this, I'd like to highlight that we eliminated the need for any retaining walls now along the back of the court. So this is all just level grade with the terrace level of the back of the house, and we now have space to just slope down without having any retaining walls in the back. Additionally, no trees will have to be removed as a result of this plan. So the photos that you see of the existing grade with the existing canopy surrounding is exactly what will remain in place. No additional trees will need to be removed as a result of this plan. And as I already noted, the encroachment areas have been reduced from 23.5 feet of total depth, like deepest incursion, to 9.1, and an 80% reduction of the overall area from the original option 1 plan to 484 square feet now. If I could, in addition, I'd like to provide a little more background on why this project is so important for us and why it's really more to us than just a recreational amenity in a house. I think I mentioned briefly last time our son, who's here with us tonight. Our son is autistic, and he has a number of severe sensory issues and a propensity to have frequent stimming behaviors, which for him usually manifests itself in like different types of like spit play. So he likes to spit water out of his mouth. He likes to just play with anything that feels kind of gooey or slimy. So to give you a little backstory, we first moved to Milton in 2019. We were really excited because we finally had a backyard with a fairly level backyard, big open lawn, just a few trees in the back, but plenty of space for him to sort of run around. And we thought this would be great for him. He had just turned 5 at the time. We thought the space for him to run around and play would be great, which it was. He loved it. But what we quickly found out, unfortunately, is that his stimming behaviors manifest themselves outside as well. And when there's a big open softscape like lawn and mulch and dirt and everything, the way that manifests itself is everything goes in his mouth. Anything that's soft enough for him to scoop up goes in his mouth. And it actually, we even at one point got from one of his doctor's visit, we got blood work back that showed traces of like lawn chemicals like Roundup and stuff in his blood, which you can imagine was horrifying to us. The problem with him is that it's not just a behavioral thing with him. It's a compulsion. Like once it's in his mind, there is no amount of timeouts or bargaining or bribery that can get him to stop. The only thing he can do is remove him from that temptation, which in our case meant we had to take him inside. And sometimes it would be days before he could go out again without that triggering in his mind to want to put something in his mouth. So we started trying to think of what can we do to have a safe space for him outdoors where he can play, get some fresh air, be outside, but not constantly have the danger of being able to ingest things that are going to be harmful to him. And that's where the idea for a tennis court originated. So the thought was, well, we can have directly off the back of the house a very tightly enclosed area where you can have a pool to play in the summertime that runs right into the tennis court, all of which would be completely enclosed, and the enclosed area would be completely paved so that while he's outside playing, if he's in the lawn area, that's great. But the minute he starts to exhibit the behaviors, we can take him out of that environment, still let him play outside and have a place where he can get some fresh air and play outside and have space to run around, ride a bike, ride a scooter, whatever in the tennis court area, but not have the risk of him, scooping up something and ingesting it. So that's really kind of the primary driver for this project, and it's why this is really kind of more than just a recreational amenity to us. But I guess I'll stop there. That's pretty much all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Michael, could you pull up the drone view again? Thank you for all the work you put in on this. So just my question is, you can see the silt fence going around.
Mhm.
So from disturbing the land, putting everything in, you're not going to go and have to go into that silt fence or not knock any of those trees down to build this.
No tree. I don't know if, there will be like in that section in the middle. I don't know if we'd have to go past that at all for like any of the construction activities, but no trees would have to be removed. If you can see in the middle of that section, there's a space there where there really aren't a whole lot of trees directly behind.
Yep.
But to the trees to the sides that you can see, those are all outside of the footprint, of course. Those would not need to be removed.
Great. Thank you.
Can you use a cursor on this picture? Can you use the mouse maybe?
Yes,
Can you show me where the stream is on that picture?
it is somewhere back in this general area.
Can you show where it goes? And
I don't know where it terminates. I know there's a bridge under here and kind of goes this way, but I don't know exactly. Beyond that, I don't know exactly where it goes.
I drove back there and could not find it.
Yeah,
It's this big. Yeah. It's nice. It's small.
I'll just say, good job on what you've been doing. And my only question is, are you happy with the result?
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
So,
good. Good.
Yeah, like I said, the intent all along was to have, everything very kind of tightly compacted to the house, for that specific reason, so we can have an area where we can let him run and play and not be worried constantly.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, I appreciate it. Like, you can have a seat. Do we have anybody wishing to speak in support? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Sir, if you'd like to make any closing remarks, you're welcome to do that.
I don't really have anything further to add other than just to say thanks again. I really appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Your efforts have really shown in terms of the difference between your initial plan and the changes that you've made. Sorry, are there any additional questions for staff at all before I close public comment?
Yeah, I got a question. How does the state determine if there's a stream?
They survey the survey engineer surveys, and if they see water, they tell us that they are licensed surveyors. So, they tell us that there is a state water in here, and they put buffers on the property when they do the survey.
I could jump in on that. I sat down with Jerry, development engineer, because he had a lot of comments about stream buffers last time. So basically, the state determines, this is where the state waters are, and there's 3 different categories. The least restrictive is ephemeral, where it's basically arrested vegetation. Just, you look back there, it just looks, there's no water there. It just looks like a ditch.
It's a ditch.
Right.
Yeah.
And then halfway up that is intermittent stream. And that is, as in the definition, it's just water flows in it sometimes when there's strong rain. And then most of the time, it just looks like a ditch. And then the most aggressive is the perennial stream, like the Chattahoochee or Willow Creek, where there's water at all times. So those are the 3, different types, but all 3 of them require the 50 and 75.
Right.
Can you tell from the site plan what grade of stream it is?
Yeah, we couldn't tell you
That's
that.
why we rely on
Yeah.
the survey engineers to give us this breasted vegetation and the buffer lines on the property.
But, and I was told by Jerry, intermittent and ephemeral are the most common.
Okay. The only reason I say it, I asked the question is because I couldn't find it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to see on the
On the plan.
plan too, so typically you can find it.
There are no further questions for staff. I will close the the public comment portion of this application and open the floor for a motion in a second.
I'll make the motion or a motion to approve the 22-23 to allow a tennis court to encroach upon the 75-foot buffer with the conditions exactly as recommended in the staff, which is you'll have to recite them all again. It's in accordance with the Keystone Land Surveying of November 9th, 22, the water quality treatment as determined by the city engineer, the landscape screening as proposed around the tennis courts. And I would say that landscaping as to be approved by the arborist, by the city arborist. And that a foundation survey be completed for the permitting process.
I'll second that motion. So to restate the motion for V 22-23, 160 Deer Haven Lane. We have several conditions. The first condition is that it's per the site plan from Keystone Land Surveying received November 9th, 2022. Water quality treatment to be provided for all new impervious surfaces is determined by the city development engineer through the permitting process. Landscape and screening around the tennis courts to be provided as proposed, subject to the approval of the city arborist, and provide a foundation survey during the permitting process of the tennis court. Discussion.
I'll just say, I believe this this variance meets the conditions as required by this board. I don't see any detriment to the community in this. I believe there is a hardship and they've done everything possible to, and done a great job in trying to mitigate circumstances of this particular lot. And I just think it meets the requirements for variance of this board.
To add to what Don said, the previous two plans that were submitted to us, I struggled to find any of the considerations that we could apply to it. I'm excited that the applicant worked with the city staff and really try to reduce the overall impact. I feel that there's hardship there. I don't feel that we're doing a detriment to the public safety or health or welfare by approving it. And I feel the applicant made our job easier with the last revision that came in on this.
I really appreciate the one option too, instead of the two different options. Yeah.
Any other comments?
No.
I'll restate the motion and we'll take a vote on V 22-23 160 Deer Haven Lane to approve it per the Keystone Land Surveying site plan received on November 9th, 2022. Water quality treatment to be provided for all new impervious surfaces as determined by the city development engineer through the permitting process. Landscape screening around the tennis court to be provided as proposed and approved by the city arborist, and a foundation survey during the permitting process of the tennis court. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Please continue to work with the city staff. Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask a question to city staff?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if they weren't going into that 75-foot impervious setback, would they have to include flow wells?
Yeah, if they're disturbing more than 5,000 square feet, the site engineer will decide if they need to
Oh, okay.
have that water quality treatment.
Is that only for building close to a stream, or is that any building?
Figures mostly near the buffer, but it can also be included if it's really a big disturbance and they are required to take care of the water.
Got it.
And typically if it's under,
You have to, if you add new impervious areas, you have to reduce. Start out with an undeveloped site, permeability. If you add impervious areas, no matter if you're 5,000 feet away from any stream. Think of, this is one, build 10,000 new houses that overburdens the streams. Handle that. Every time you add impervious area, you increase the runoff. EMP is the word you will use, because you're gonna have multiple methods to handle stormwater runoff. Flow well, just rain gardens, retention pond, detention ponds, enhanced swales, there's multiple examples.
Oh, that was helpful.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Jerry's gonna hit him with, think of the house is already there and they did the new tennis court. Jerry has the purview of hitting him for water quality for all new impervious surface. So really, it's kind of up to staff hit him with what requirements are coming their way.
The third primary variance this evening is V 22-242080 Birmingham Road. Will staff please present?
The address is 280 Birmingham Road, and the applicant is requesting the following variances: to allow an existing structure to be a future guest house and remain in front of the proposed primary house, and to allow an existing structure to encroach a 25-foot side setback on the eastern boundary by 4 feet and the 25-foot side setback on the western boundary by 13 feet. The site is a 6.3 acre parcel located on the north side of Birmingham Road. The property zone AG1 is located in the Rural Milton Overlay District. Applicable setbacks for lot are 60-foot front, 50-foot rear, and 25-foot side. The house was built in 1964 and Fulton County zoning setbacks were applicable, which are the same as the current AG1 zoning setback requirements. The properties are existing non-compliant and require variances to submit any type of permit in the future. This 6.3 acre parcel is a flag lot with 89 feet of frontage at the street, and the buildable area widens to 277 feet after the stem. The applicant is proposed to build the primary single-family home in the northeastern corner of the property, right here. And the future guest house is to be the existing structure here. Therefore, a variance is requested to allow the existing structure to remain in front of the proposed single-family home for a guest house use. The existing single-family home is located in the stem of the flag lot, and the applicant is requesting to allow the structure to encroach the 25-foot side setback on the eastern boundary by 4 feet, and then 25-foot side setback on the western boundary by 13 feet. Here's a more zoomed-in picture of the existing structure. The current size of the structure is 1,170 square feet and is under the maximum allowed 1,500 square feet of heated floor area for a guest house. The 3 properties to the east have similar lot widths, and the house placements are similar of around 120 feet from Birmingham Road as shown in the aerial. The property directly to the west also has a narrow lot, but the house is set further back around 250 feet from Birmingham Road. The northwestern portion of the property is bordered by the Hampton Manor subdivision. The southern parcel also has state waters bisecting the property with a city of Milton 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback requirement. The site plan indicates the property has an overall drop in grade of 46 feet throughout the property. The proposed house footprint is completely outside of the city of Milton 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. The proposed driveway does encroach a 75-foot impervious setback. However, if the variance is granted to allow the guest house in front of the primary house, the future primary house has a legal right to access per zoning ordinance section 2383, and no variance will be required to encroach the 75-foot impervious setback for the driveway. Based on the primary house location, it is impossible to avoid the 75-foot impervious setback for access. The applicant is not disturbing the city of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer for the proposed driveway location. Photos of the property are shown in Exhibit B. And here's a view of the property from Birmingham Road. And this is the back of the existing house. Here's the view to the east and view to the west. And here's a view to the north. On November 1st, the DRB met and had the following comments. DRB recommends approval of this variance request. The existing house predated Milton's incorporation and was built in the 1960s. A single-family home and a guest house on a large property is keeping with the character of Milton. And recommendations from staff, if approved, per the site plan from Brumblo Reeves and Associates Incorporated, received on October 3rd, 2022 by the Community Development Department. Any questions for staff?
Could you go back to the site plan and show us where the driveway is?
Yes. So as you can see right here, here's the proposed house. And here's the driveway right here, and they're kind of tucking it aggressively right here to encroach to 75, in my opinion, as minimally as possible, rather than having like a more wide turn.
Can you show where the driveway intersects Birmingham Highway?
Yeah, that's left to be determined. It looks like it starts right here in the middle of the property. Is that where you're going with that?
And where, how are they going to get through the house?
From talking to Scott, I believe he was going to go on the western side, which had the most room.
So are they going to have to get a variance to put a driveway in there? No?
No, because it's all, think of it as just one parcel, you know. You get the guest house, if approved, you get the guest house with the driveway. It's not a separate parcel by any means. It's all in one 6-acre lot.
I think the question, the driveway can go in the setback.
Correct, yes. Yeah, we cannot deny access to a primary structure.
It can go in, well, it looks like it's going to have to go on either side of the house, right? And it can be within the
Impervious, yeah, impervious. It's a part of
Side
impervious
I
setback.
think you're worried about the
Talking about
side
the side.
setback along the side of the house. That's
Okay.
what you're worried about.
Gotcha.
Can you go back to aerial on that? So that other house with the white roof, I mean, that on the property line, I mean, you were out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty
Pretty
close. Sometimes the aerials are off
No.
by 5 to 10 feet. So it could be closer than it really is, but yeah, it was pretty close when I was out there. There was a dog barking at me as well.
Was this split prior to the city of Milton?
Yes,
incorporation?
yeah, correct.
So, and then go back to the. What I'm trying to see is, yeah, it's about 20 foot off that property line is, and then about 11 foot off the other, 11 and a half.
Correct,
Is that
yeah.
what we're looking at?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Can you point out where the existing septic field is at?
Yeah, I'll let Scott jump
Okay.
in on where the septic field is. I believe it's in the rear of the property, behind the house.
And is that the current home that's on the property? Is that occupied at this time? Do we know?
I am not sure about that.
Okay.
I'll let Scott answer that.
Can you read the guest house criteria, please?
Absolutely. Section 641598 guest house. There are 5 separate standards. 1, no more than 1 guest house structure per lot may be used for occupancy by relatives, guests, or employees that work on the property without payment for rent. Number 2, a separate kitchen facility shall be allowed. Number 3, heated floor area shall be a minimum of 650 square feet and a maximum of 1,500 square feet. Number 4, principal building setback shall apply. And finally, number 5, the location shall be limited to the rear yard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
While you've got your book out or whatever there, could we also get a little more clarification on that other ruling about the 75-foot setback not applying if the driveway has another house in front of it or something?
You mean encroaching, yeah, the zoning ordinance,
383?
right? We have to pull it up manually because this only has 64, because 20 is in the subdivision regulations. /383. Three, yeah.
Grandfathering, no.
Are you looking for the exemption for access to the property?
Correct.
Mhm.
Uh, Following specific activities are exempt from this article. Public are intrusions necessary to provide access to a property. 2383A2, A3.
Yes, they're technically could go in the 50 or 25, but they're staying just within the 75.
I'm sorry, I missed what Paul actually was saying there. But it's saying that you're allowed to have a driveway that encroaches to 75 foot if there's another house in front of you? Is that what it is?
Really,
Even
the
if it's
intent is
your-
that for the primary home, if this variance is granted, the house in the back becomes the primary home, so that would apply in essence.
But it doesn't mention anything about a 75-foot buffer to a stream.
This is saying the 75-foot stream buffer does not apply to prohibit you from having access to the property.
Well, okay, so make it a gravel driveway. I mean,
Well, I don't think, I mean, no, I agree with you, but that won't matter until they have to go through a whole plan and permit process and everything in order to go to do that. And at which point, if there would be a requirement for a variance, it would come up at that point.
Correct.
But for this, we just have to decide, you know, does this guest house fit within the criteria of the 4 factors? And if so,
you're right. That's not part of this variance, but from the staff standpoint,
they're gonna still have to deal with that at some point,
seems
right?
to me that there might be another variance required.
Yeah, we reviewed this with the zoning manager, and she agreed that if the primary house is behind guest house, then that code section applies and no variance would be required.
But it doesn't have to be behind, basically, to access the primary house, wherever it is. They have a right to cross the stream, they have a right to encroach if they need to into the buffers and the setbacks. That's what Paul. Yeah. so
Yeah, we can't.
The
there was
right to
another-
access.
I forget where it was. There was another one we dealt with that those people were talking about the runoff issues and the front yards flooding because they had a creek they had to drive over to get their home.
Okay, well, you're right. This is not what we're considering here today.
Michael, I've got a question for you. This is a 6.3 acre lot in AG1. At some point in the future, could this be subdivided where the accessory structure, the current structure that's there is on its own lot, and then the primary structure that's in the back?
Well, because I think they have enough frontage, right? to
Right.
Subdivide. They
Yeah.
do have, but I don't think they can subdivide with the structure in the middle because right now the existing structure is right
Right.
in the.
They would need variances regardless. I mean, they could technically get a second flag lot and the flag stem could thin down to 15 feet. So it is doable, but they would need a larger variance for the existing structure.
Okay.
Because it's 20 feet on the eastern side from the property line.
Any additional questions for staff? Thank you, Michael. If the applicant would like to come forward. We'll have a total of 10 minutes for the applicant to present, as well as those in support and closing remarks from the applicant. Then we'll have an additional 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese from Reese and Associates doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004, Milton, Georgia. I'm here tonight representing English family that purchased this property some time back. I'd like to give you just a little bit of history of why we're here. This property was part of the Dockery estate. When the elders died a few years or several years back now, the will was such that each of the heirs got a buildable site. And if you recall the aerial photograph, you see very odd shaped properties, but that was kind of a standard operating procedure in North Fulton County in the 50s and 60s. People wanted houses extremely close to the street, and the houses were small, and the lot shapes were whatever they could fit to get those houses into the front. So the house was built in 1964 prior to zoning regulations in Fulton County. It was compliant at that time. It has been vacant for a little bit of time. English has purchased it. They're rehabbing the house now. It is existing non-compliant now, so that everything is in, would be grandfathered in. But you lose any of your grandfathering or all of your grandfathering when you make any changes whatsoever to the property. So it's in basically lockdown now without granting this variance. This is not really a self-imposed hardship. This is an existing condition. This house has been here 60 years almost. All new construction would be completely compliant with the existing conditions. The proposed driveway, as we discussed, the way the ordinance reads or is interpreted by us, is we are to minimize the effect. If we're doing a stream crossing, we have to do as close to a perpendicular as possible. So that site plan that you see is our attempt to minimize any disturbance in that 75-foot setback. So we've got an existing condition that's been around for 60 years. The Englishes just wish to be able to build a house in the back, leave this existing house in the front. And to do that, we need to bring it into compliance. It meets all of the conditions of a guest house except for the setbacks and existing in front of the primary residence. So it's, I think it meets the criteria for the hardships. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. And I will reserve my rebuttal time in case we have any opposition to the site plan. Yes.
What's the applicant's plan for the current structure that's there? Is it to renovate it?
Yes, it's in the process of being renovated to make it habitable. It really wasn't in that the condition that they purchased it in. So it will be a guest house for a family member is the long-term plan.
And have permits been pulled for that renovation already?
That is, yes. So it's no exterior changes. It's So yeah, it's permitted. Or that's my understanding.
So it's interior renovations
Yes.
that are permitted.
I don't remember seeing that permit yet,
The
but
applicant
they might
is
have
here.
applied for it. No, it's maybe in the queue. Oh,
Mr. English is a home builder, so I'm acceding to him that he has done it correctly.
And in terms of the adjacent property owners, do we have letters of support for any of the adjacent property
We
owners?
have not. They were contacted and we do not have letters of support. We haven't had anyone call us and say they were not in support. I'm having a very hard time getting letters on my new, unless someone disagrees and unless they've got a dog in the fight. And I've personally contacted and they're not that concerned about it.
So
So-
you've reached out to them outside of the city's normal process for
In
contacting
this
impacted
process,
owners?
the next one I did, I personally called. I did not personally call on this one. We made, the comments went out. If I don't have any prior experience, some people don't like to be bothered. So everyone was contacted per the city standards and we haven't been contacted. There may be someone in the audience that will come forth but no one has contacted me or the owners with a problem. So
The sign was up.
sign was up and letters were sent.
Another question for you is the driveway would be going to the proposed new residence. Would there be any objection if it was a condition that it was pervious surface coming across the creek there?
That I'm fine with that. Your city engineer does not consider anything pervious. Everything's impervious. But that's if you learned individuals think a gravel driveway is better, I kind of agree with you, but your city engineer makes me design a gravel driveway with the same standards as if it was concrete. Because in his opinion, after driving over that surface for years, the compaction level reaches such that it becomes, in essence, impervious.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, appreciate it. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak in support?
not in support, but opposition, yes, one person.
Okay,
We said that. Call Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew Crioe.
good evening, Matthew. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Matthew Krupp. My address is 15743 Manor Trace. It is one of the properties in the Hampton Manor subdivision that borders this property on the western side. So just a couple responses to a couple comments that were just made by Mr. Reese. We never received any communication or notice about these proposed variances. My wife is one of the members of the board of the HOA. We just learned about this 3 days ago, hence my representation here today. Also, would like to say that there have been exterior modifications to the property that is currently being renovated. There's a covered front porch that was added. There was also a rear porch that was added to the property. Additional concerns is that For my property in particular, as I understand it and what's been discussed here today, is that if the variance for the existing structure is approved, that there will be no variance needed for the driveway, which would directly encroach my property. So the back of my property, there is a berm that slopes downward from the property line that borders.
Can I interrupt you for one
Yes.
second? Michael, can you put up this site plan? And then, sir, if you can reference this site plan in terms of the location of your residence, as well as the berm that you're referring to. Thank you, Michael.
So this house right here is my residence. And so, oops. So this property line here, from this property line or relatively close to the property line, we have a berm that slopes down in our backyard, sloping down toward the house. And so there's a couple concerns. We're concerned about possible structural integrity impact of that if there's an encroachment on the property line. Also, the current driveway at the existing structure goes up to a carport. And so I'm not sure how the new driveway would be designed or directed in order to actually like not encroach on the other property line that's right next to that. It seems that there's absolutely no room for that, that it would be more encroachment than what has been outlined in this variance. And also drainage coming down. Currently we have this slope in our backyard, and the drainage comes down, and we do get water kind of collected in our backyard. At times, we're concerned about what potential further impacts or that this proposed driveway would incur or create. And we also had plans to build a pool and an outdoor living space this year. And so, what does that mean for this? If there are if encroachment is made on our property line, is that going to then increase costs for our building? Because we would most likely have to put in a retaining wall. Are there any considerations to that? Is that going to impact our plans that we had started developing for this year? And so I know that the current variance being requested is for the existing structure to be allowed. But my concern is that with that being allowed, that all of my concerns here are not going to be addressed, that this driveway will be automatically allowed. And
So you mentioned a berm. Is that on the backside of your property?
yes, sir.
Okay. So it's on the shared property line.
Well, the berm is on our property. So the property line being the red line, and then within about 15 to 20 feet of our property line, we have a berm that slopes then down towards our house. So the proposed driveway would actually be level with the second floor of our house. Our house is situated lower than this property currently in question.
So it's an earthen berm at this point. It is not a retaining wall.
Correct.
Okay. And you had mentioned that you did not receive notice or were unaware of it. Can you share with us how you learned about?
Another member, one of our neighbors, another member of the neighborhood, actually sent an email out to everybody 3 days ago. I'm not sure how he was made aware of it. We never received any written communication. The HOA, as far as we know it, my wife is the treasurer, and the HOA was not made aware of these plans. I do believe that the sign was posted in the front of the property, but we never received any other communication.
Yeah, I just want to say, letters go out within 300 feet of the property. And I did receive 2 calls from Hampton Manor homeowners. But we can look up to make sure if there was an error within the USPS, but I did get 2 calls from homeowners in that subdivision. You give me your address. Check that.
It's on the.
So I have a question. So is that adjacent property within the distance? Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure it's
Right.
hard to
Uh-huh.
tell. Okay.
But you said you believe these 2 new porches were just put on? Okay, so the site plan that we've been giving shows those porches. I guess we'll have to ask the applicant about that because whether they were there or not,
Okay. Yeah.
are we approving an existing lot, I mean, an existing site plan footprint, or are we approving it that these 2 have just been added on? I'm not clear what the situation is here. But you believe they were just added on?
I believe so, yes. We've owned the house prior to the sale of this property in question. So we drive past it every day to come home into the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to say we have a permit issued for interior renovation, and so it doesn't come to me as a planning and zoning because they're just doing interior renovation, but I checked in the system, it was issued a permit for interior renovation.
And would a porch require that,
No, porch would
That would be
require
exterior.
exterior, yeah, so,
would require something coming through?
yeah,
Request
through
for that.
me, I would be reviewing that.
Because it would be an expansion of the footprint.
Right. I'm not sure what porch really means. Does that mean something covered, or does that mean?
Any deck too.
If it's covered porch, yes,
Okay.
it's just a round cover then.
Right.
Any other
I don't
questions?
have a question.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to come to the meeting and share your concerns with
Thank you.
us.
Thank you for your time.
That was the only person wishing to speak in opposition, is that correct? Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Reese, if you want to come up and make any closing
address
statements.
his concerns. The site plan that you have in front of you are the conditions when we personally surveyed the property. Sorry, I can't speak to anything other than that was the condition when, and it's dated when our field crews were out there. I know I saw the permit sign and inspections by the city, so I can only speak to that which I know. And that which I know is when we were out there, that existing footprint is what was existing conditions. So that, I'm sorry, I can't expand upon that, other than I do know there, because when I took pictures, there's a permit box out there and the city has inspected it. So that I can address. And the existing footprint in front of you was the conditions when we did the field survey. As far as potential runoff problems, or I guess when he says encroachment, any new construction will be completely encompassed on the property. We can't encroach onto his property. Any new construction will have to be permitted through the building permit process and reviewed by the city engineer. We have to take great pains now with the stormwater ordinance to not only meet the status quo, we have to do a stormwater reduction. We have to reduce the amount of runoff. So I know, everyone is convinced that computer modeling doesn't work and all, but whether we do it or anyone else, they're going to have standards to adhere to. and the driveway can't go on someone else's property. And any new disturbance must be controlled with best management practices and stormwater reduction, whether that's enhanced swales along ditches or flow wells or anything like that. But the city engineer will require a reduction of runoff from existing conditions. The driveway, the proposed driveway, so building setback lines are for structures. A driveway is not a structure, and it can encroach into the 25-foot side setbacks. Or I'm going to change my semantics, not encroach, but can lie within that, and that is completely compliant. So we would be placing a driveway on that right-hand side in that 20-foot strip, and that is completely within the ordinance ability. So what we're asking for now is to bring a existing structure that has been here since, according to Fulton County record, since 1964 into compliance. If we're denied, then the structure is going to stay there, and perhaps they can sell part of that property or something. The structure is not going away. We're trying to make the best of the existing conditions. This isn't a self-imposed hardship where we went and built, or we're seeking to build a structure over the building setback lines and in front of the primary. This is an existing condition that we're trying to address as best we can. So that's where I'm at. Any follow-up questions, I'll be glad to try to address.
Ask a question? Sure. Okay. So if we put in a condition that said that the driveway behind the existing structure remains in the middle of the lot,
The strip or
The strip.
the stem.
would that condition be, I don't know, would the,
I mean,
would the owner object to that?
I don't see
condition?
it, I would prefer that it be, because it's all about slope. So the property is sloping east to west. It may be better for all concerned if the property, if the driveway is closer to the east. So if you're on a slope,
Yeah.
the further away I go up here on the top, the more room I have to mitigate. So it's your
I
condition,
understand.
but
Yeah.
could we, if it is, I would prefer it be phrased as such that on the eastern side, which would be the uphill side.
Or could it be just to mitigate the most amount of water?
Yeah,
Well,
that would be the most logical, and then let the professionals do their due diligence and their good work.
Right.
Because you
And
want to
they
avoid
have a
trees
duty
as
not-
well, and yeah.
Right.
They have a duty not to,
I
by
prefer to put
modifying
it
the
over on
land,
the
it has-
high side and give me more room to mitigate. But
they cannot disturb the natural flow. If they do, which diverts additional water onto someone else's property, it's a nuisance and therefore subject to a lawsuit. I've done it. So they are required to make that happen. I have other concerns that I'll.
And if
that
I
don't have
apologize,
that I'm not gonna ask.
on these, the city tells us that they're going to contact the neighbors, and I just assume that happens, and whether there was a problem with the US mail, I personally apologize. We just go by, they have a standard operating procedure, and we accept that.
Mr. Reese, can you clarify on the drive that would be going to the new proposed structure?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
On the site plan, the carport's on the left side. There's 11 and a half feet there.
Yes,
On
on
the right
the
side,
west side.
22 feet on the east side. Are you proposing that the drive would be more on the eastern side?
Yes, so the fire marshal wants a minimum of a 12-foot wide driveway, and at 11 and a half, that kind of doesn't work. So if it would be, give someone some level of comfort that specified a condition that if approved, the proposed driveway would have to be on the eastern side.
The other thing that brings up is, and I'm going from this aerial here, is the home to the east. Pretty
It's close,
there.
but they're on their property. And once again, this all happened in the 60s when this family divided. And when it was all brothers and sisters and cousins, they wanted their houses close together.
Yeah.
And, I'm not the variance police and right out around, and they were all built prior to. This section, all of the houses are extremely close to the property lines because they're 80 and 90 feet wide.
Right. And therein lies the hardship. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Would you know whether those two porches are enclosed, that they could possibly be heated space or not?
They are completely open. And I think you have pictures. I mean, they are just like,
Do we have
just
pictures of
a
that?
cover. I mean, it's just,
They were in the packet.
in your
Okay.
packet, there should be, because we have to do
The
that
one
with
with the four pictures?
DRB.
Yeah.
And
These two.
Yeah.
they're not any way, form or fashion.
I see.
There would have to be definitely a permitting process to enclose those.
Okay.
I mean, it's just kind of a gable over something.
That now, yeah.
Maybe the technical term should be stoop.
With a cover or something, I don't know.
Yeah, where, if you go to open your door, when it's raining, you're not being flooded.
Okay, I see the picture now, yeah.
Any other closing questions for the applicant?
I guess I have one. I mean, or it's for the city or the applicant. I don't think Scott, to be denied.
Yes.
Your options are to leave it there and use it as a primary residence or demolish it and build. a
Demolish
primary
it and
residence.
subdivide the property. Because then with that 6 acres, we can do 3 lots with that 35-foot front. And that would probably be the most economical thing, is to turn this into 3 lots. If it's denied. I mean,
That the frontage is not the only thing that determines how you can do regulations of how much buildable area.
Right, if it percolates.
So
and
not
we need-
necessarily they will be able to divide trees, we will look at many other things.
From an acreage, from a minimalist 6 acres, the minor subdivision plat ordinance, if we meet all the other, i.e., and the primary thing you're gonna have to deal with
Septic.
is setbacks, buildable area, woods. But that would be the likely,
Yeah.
is you would manipulate the system, or use the system, not manipulate, because it would have to meet all the ordinances. And if we can fit septic systems on there and, use the house size to footprints that would meet the setbacks. And as we went over, they would have the right to cross the stream because that provides access. You can't deny access. We'd have to just cross the stream in a perpendicular manner.
It would at least be 2.
Yes.
One other question for you. Is there a reason the proposed new home was not pushed further back into the lot and is kind of tucked to the right?
It's basically a function of topography and cost. So you would, if you can avoid at all crossing a stream because it is extremely expensive, that is the most logical place. And it provides the least amount of disturbance and based upon that. And the stem is not wide enough at any point. You have to get into the main body to create a buildable area that would meet would meet setback requirements and septic system requirements too. But if one of your plans should have contour lines And that's the best place for a house.
No other questions? Thank you, Mr. Reese. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff before I close public comment?
No.
I will close the public portion of this application request and open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'd like to make a motion to approve V 22-24 to allow the existing structure to be a future guest house and remain in the front of the proposed primary house, and to allow an existing structure to encroach the 25 side setback on the eastern boundary by 4 feet and 25 side setback on the western boundary by 13 feet, with the following condition: to the site plan from Brumbelow Reese and Associates dated October 3rd, 2022, submitted to the Community Development Department.
Second.
On V 22-24, 2080 Birmingham Road, we have a motion from Laura Bentley and a second from Zach.
Can I just be clear? I think the way the staff has written them up is a little different than the proposed motion on the site plan. I think it's received on October 3rd, not dated October 3rd. I'm looking, because it looks like a September date on the,
19.
and correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay,
We've got a double stamp on it.
Okay, I was just looking at the one in the
The
plan.
September date looks like it's crossed out.
Okay,
Correct. Yeah, it's October 3rd.
okay. Then
See.
it's good as presented. I'm sorry.
Thanks for
so
having us double check that. Appreciate it.
Yep.
didn't I say that?
I don't know.
I
don't
said, I
remember.
think I said received. Did I say received?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tell me when
you
I
did.
said it.
I
Um,
was looking at the prior drawing.
Okay.
Let me just restate the motion just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and then we'll open up for discussion. V 22-24, 2080 Birmingham Road. Laura had a motion and we had a second from Zach to allow an existing structure to be a future guest house and remain in the front of the proposed primary house. And the second part was to allow an existing structure to encroach the 25-foot side setback on the eastern boundary by 4 feet, the 25-foot side setback on the western boundary by 13 feet. Per the site plan from Brumbelow, Reese and Associates received on October 3rd, 2022 by the Community Development Department. Open up for discussion.
Yeah, my points are that this does not offend the spirit of the ordinance. This home, which would become a guest house, has been there since 1964. The lot is a very odd shape, unusual shape, which creates a hardship. The surrounding properties are similarly situated as well, and I don't feel like the health and welfare is, it is secured through this variance.
I disagree with you in regard to the spirit and intent of the ordinance. And the way I look at it is that there's a lot here that you have room for a home on it that is, that you could have a guest house in the back or a primary residence. There's space to have it. To me, the spirit intent of the ordinance is to maintain the rural view shed, that if you're going to have a guest house, it's going to be behind the primary home. And it's going to be of a certain size to where it minimally impacts the view from, wherever you're looking, the street or whichever. So I don't know if the spirit intent of the ordinance is met under this condition. is there a hardship on this lot for, a primary home to have a guest house? I mean, I think you can have a guest house in the back and have a primary home in the front where it's located. You know, the way this is set up, and I know this happened in the 60s. I mean, I've lived in an area where there was 50s ranches and they were all torn down and they're all multi-million-dollar homes now. If it was a 100-year-old home, I would feel more comfortable with it staying, something like that. But when you're talking about one that was built in the 50s, 60s, to me, those homes are typically not built well and have already had a lot of problems, and it's a lot more difficult to renovate them. That's where I'm just, my concern is for, maintaining the rural look and feel. Having a guest house in front of a primary house on 6 acres doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't feel like it fits the spirit and intent of the ordinance. So that's where I don't feel like it meets that criteria, which would obviously kill the variance. But I don't know how else.
Looking at it from the other way, we didn't approve the variance, the house is going to stay. And it's going to be renovated and lived in, and it's going to be there no matter what. You're never going to see what they're proposed in the back anyway.
Or it could be demolished.
Or
and then
we
the
can
disturbance
end
of the
up
whole lot
with
would
It
turn
could be
into,
demolished, sold, and somebody could build on the back, and then you
But-
have
but the disturbance would
It
be.
could.
less view or
Much
a
greater.
less feel of density in that particular space in rural Milton. I don't know. I mean, it's their property. They get to do what they want with it. I just,
Yeah.
Some of I'm just going to argue with you, but we're having a healthy debate. So some of the greatest parts of Milton are those 50s and 60s homes that are in the rural viewshed because, no offense, but we have some beautiful estates. But as I drive along that corridor, it brings me back to what Milton was long before we got here. Some of those are original inhabitants and some of the pioneers that are here. So when I see a house like that we're trying to find a use for and incorporate into the Milton now, I really want to embrace that and try to work with this hardship to accommodate that.
From the pictures, it looks like it's in good shape now. Like it looks like it appears that it's not in disrepair. Maybe it was before, but it's not now. And I think if we said no to this, either it stays or it gets torn down and the disruption of the property becomes much greater.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I understand that the live stream may have just crashed. If we can take a 5-minute recess just to find out what the situation is and then continue.
Sure.
We'll see what we need to do.
Conspiracy.
It is.
Find out.
It is.
You want me to make a motion for a 5-minute recess?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion for a 5-minute recess so we can address some technical issues.
second.
We got a motion from Hodge and a second from Adam for a 5-minute recess. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
I will call our meeting back to order. We were on,
Discussion.
we're in discussion on, if I can find it here.
22, 24.
V2224.
24 on V2224. One of the comments that I was about to make before we went out is if you look at a site plan, the adjacent neighborhood, I'm referencing this, is pretty dense. Without knowing all the perks and how that property that the applicant's submitting on, theory, they could do something pretty significant there at some point in the future if we don't approve it, potentially.
Even with all the stream buffers right through the
They
property?
could put a road in going back to the stream and have 3 houses back there potentially.
Hmm.
2, 3 houses.
The driveway is going to be there no matter what. If they knock the house down,
They'll still have
the
the
front,
driveway.
and they'll put a driveway to the back, or they leave the house there, there's still going to be a driveway to the back.
Yeah, I was just going to say to the gentleman that had objected, even, no matter which way we go, there would be a chance to, face this again once the new house starts going in the driveway. So we're not, whatever decision we make here, although it could stop it, a driveway is going in, but there's still a chance for that neighborhood to make their case in the future.
Well, they're not going to have to get a variance for the new
Yeah,
drive, for
so
the
no matter
driveway.
whatever we do tonight, that development can address it in the future. That's all I'm saying.
Just not with us.
No, well, maybe not, I don't know, but with somebody.
Right.
Any other comments?
I agree with your point as well. Again, I mean, I'm not to belabor it, but the home that's there has been there. Anytime you see a 6+ acre lot that, the intention is to have family live there. And I assume that family would live in the back as well. And there are hardships, a hardship. That's something that I would like to support.
And going back to the structure that's in place right now, they have already pulled permits to renovate the interior of it. So we're up against that situation where their intent was, one, to renovate that home, which they've already started the process, it sounds like, and are now looking for an opportunity to keep that existing home as an accessory structure, even though it's in the front yard, build another home in the rear of the lot. Any other discussion? So I will read through the variance or the motion one more time, and we will take a vote. V22-24, 2080 Birmingham Road. A motion was made by Laura, I believe, and we had a second. That Zach?
Yep.
Second by Zach, to allow an existing structure to be a future guest house and remain in the front of the proposed primary home. To allow an existing structure to encroach the 25-foot side setback on the eastern boundary by 4 feet, the 25-foot side setback on the western boundary by 13 feet. Per the site plan from Brumbelow, Reese and Associates received on October 3rd, 2022 by the Community Development Department. All those in favor of approving the variance, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The motion passes 5-1.
I would just like to make a public comment. During that recess, I pulled my laptop and yeah, I know. I was making a public comment about the gentleman saying he didn't receive public notice. So the Fulton County records showed it went to the 2021 records, which is the previous homeowner is Paige Michelle Montague, which is the previous homeowner. That's what the Fulton County GIS sent it to, which was 4045 St. Michelle Lane, Alpharetta, Georgia. So we just went off of what we had in front of us is why he said he didn't get a letter.
Thanks. So just to clarify, the property address of record as of January 1st of the year, based on the assessor's records, is that what you guys are using?
Well, we use a public notification tool through our ArcGIS.
Well, Fulton County's records are much more updated than us. That's why we use their addresses, but looks like this time it was not updated. So sorry about that, but
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that discrepancy.
Well, and that's why it's, the postage and then also the signs. So I know it's
that's why we have
best,
3 different types of notifications.
Yeah. I know it's best for all of them to work.
Let me see. Give me one second.
Hodge, I'm
Zach is going to excuse himself from the rest of the meeting. Zach, thanks for attending this evening.
I can bring this. Feels like it.
The next case this evening is V 22-25, 14328 and 1433 Phillips Circle. Staff, please present.
Good evening, and as we said, the PowerPoint's down, so please go through this like old school, yes.
The old way, huh?
The variance requests involve two separate parcels located on the north side of Phillips Circle, both owned by the Wright family. The first parcel is 14328 Phillips Circle with a total size of 3.24 acres. And the second parcel is 14330 Phillips Circle with a total size of 5.29 acres. The properties are zoned AG1 and both are located in the rural Milton Overlay District. The existing single-family home on 14328 Phillips Circle was built prior to Milton's incorporation, and Fulton County zoning setbacks were applicable. Phillips Circle is a gravel road and the minimum lot size requirement is 3 acres. The existing sign conditions of both parcels are shown in Exhibit A. In September, the applicant met with city staff and shared their goal of building a new primary single-family house in the southeastern corner of 14328 Phillips Circle and make the existing single-family home on the property a future guest house. The current size of the existing single-family home is 1,733 square feet over the maximum allowed 1,500 square feet for a guest house use. It also came to staff's attention that one of the accessory structures was located on the property line between 14328 and 14330 Phillips Circle. Several variances would be needed for both 14328 and 14330 Phillips Circle, and city staff recommended separating them out on their respective property addresses. The following variances are requested for 14328 Phillips Circle. To allow an existing structure to be a future guest house and to remain in front of the proposed primary house. To allow a proposed guest house to increase heated floor area from 1,500 square feet to 1,733 square feet. To allow a proposed guest house to remain in the city of Milton's 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. And as I stated earlier, due to the fact the accessory structure is over the property line, for 14328 and 14330 Phillips Circle, the following variances are requested. To allow the existing accessory structure to remain in front of the primary house. And finally, to allow the existing accessory structure to remain in the city of Milton's 75-foot impervious setback. The future minor plat will move the property line to the west and make the accessory structure compliant with the 25-foot side setback requirement, where no side setback variance will be required, as shown in Exhibit B. A colored rendering of the minor plat property line changes is shown in Exhibit C. It is the Community Development Department's policy to prohibit minor plats from moving forward with non-compliant issues. Therefore, the variance is requested before moving forward with the minor plat. The first parcel, 14328, will remain at 3 acres due to the minimum size requirement for lots located on a gravel road. And the second parcel, 14330 Phillips Circle, will remain 5+ acres. There is an overall drop in grade of 38 feet throughout the properties, and there's a lake located between both parcels. There's also state waters on both properties located north of the existing lake. Both the state waters and the existing lake have a 50-foot underserved buffer and 75-foot impervious setback requirement. The applicant is proposing to allow the existing single-family home located on 14328 Phillips Circle and the accessory structure located on both 14328 and 14330 Phillips Circle to remain in the city of Milton's 50-foot underserved buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. Impervious service is prohibited in both the 50-foot underserved buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. Therefore, variances are requested. Approximately 1,601 square feet of the existing single-family home falls within the 75-foot impervious setback, and 110 square feet is located within the 50-foot city of Milton underserved buffer. Approximately 201 square feet of the accessory structure falls within the 75-foot impervious setback. Additionally, 860 square feet of the existing driveway and sidewalk is located inside the 75-foot impervious setback, and 62 feet is located within the 50-foot City of Milton undisturbed buffer. The adjacent neighbor map shows support in Exhibit E. Give me 1 second. Oh, that's good call. That includes, yeah, let's do that.
Thanks, Sheba. It'll just take a second, I think. We can now, yes.
Here's 14430 and 14328. This is one of the Wright family members, I believe Sarah. She lives here. So she gave a support letter, which is also part applicant. And then right here we have 14401 Wood Road are the two support letters. On November 1st, 2022, the DRB met had the following comments. DRB recommends approval of the variance request. The existing house predates Milton Corporation, a single-family home and a gas house on a large acre, aligns with the character of the City of Milton. Staff comments, City Development Engineer. Leaving the portion of the house, accessory structure, driveway, and sidewalk that was within the City of Milton's 50-foot undisturbed buffer and 75-foot impervious setback would not adversely impact the state waters. If approved, staff recommends the following condition. The property shall substantially conform to the site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Brumblo Reese and Associates Incorporation received on October 3rd, 2022 by Community Development Department. A minor plat substantially similar to the site plan showing the proposed lot line changes, excuse me. Enough. I'll just repeat the conditions so it's cleaner. If approved, staff recommends the following conditions. The property shall substantially conform to the site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Brumblo Reese and Associates Corporation received on October 3rd, 2022 by the Community Development Department. And also, a minor plat substantially similar to the site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Brumblo Reese and Associates received on October 3rd, 2022 by the Community Development Department must be recorded prior to the issuance of any permits by both properties. Any questions for staff?
Can you point out the difference between the red line and the green line on the site plan that we just had up?
Yes, the green line is existing and the red line is proposed.
And then the location of the structure that was encroaching.
Yeah, right here. Here's the accessory structure, split right between the existing property line.
Where was this? Why does this not look like what's on here? Why this has it?
Yeah, that's in the packet. We have an aerial with the, that's from staff. That would have been in the PowerPoint, but I added the addresses so it's cleaner.
But the lines don't match.
Right, the GIS is off 5 or 10 feet from the aerial. That's unfortunately a product of GIS software.
No, the lines aren't even close. Like this Does the 14,330 lot go behind the 14,328 lot?
Right, so, and Scott can kind of elaborate on this. He didn't do the minor plat or the, I guess, the full-on parcel for the 14330, because they didn't want to go through that process of doing the whole 5-acre parcel until they got the variance approved, in essence. So if you zoom out, you can see it better. As far as it goes, but
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Okay,
it
now I
goes
see.
down here. That's
Got it.
across. But he didn't do topography and other things. He didn't want it, understandably.
My bad. My bad.
And that's why staff is proposing those conditions on permits being issued, is that?
Correct, yes. Go through the minor plat process and no permits can be submitted until the minor plat is recorded and approved.
You had pointed out there was, I believe, 2 letters of support.
Mhm.
Did we have anybody that contacted staff at all about opposition? at
I had
all?
2 neighbors call me and just wanted to know more details about what was requesting. And
Okay.
once they found out what it was, there was no opposition or support, just
Okay.
more just
That-
information
yeah,
gathering.
FYI.
Mhm.
So how many variances do we have here? I mean, is it all, so it's 5 different variances that we
Right.
have to vote on?
Yeah, and we consulted with Paul, kind of the safest route to go, because this is the first instance I've come across where a structure crossed the property line. So it's just cleaner to do all variances for one property and all variances on the other property. So it seems like a lot, but we're really covering all bases here if you move forward with approval.
So, but I just want to be clear, when we end up making our decision for say 14,325, are we approving those as one variance, or each of those things are going to be a different variance? In other words, how many variances are we approving? Each
Okay.
one we have to approve, each one, or are we approving it on the basis of 14,325, number 1, and then the second one with the combined?
Well, you can make a single. Yeah, I mean, I've got the same thing here. Yeah. You can make a single motion to approve all of the requested variances.
Or you can select the ones that you want to approve. They're
Right.
there.
Okay,
Really
but they are each one of those, so each one of those are separate variances as submitted.
Let's consider them that way, yes. I
Okay.
mean, some may overlap in that they say the same thing for different for 2 different, but I think if you don't have any problem with any of them, move to approve them as presented or as requested. If there's ones that you prefer not to, then just eliminate ones that you don't want to approve, or just pick and choose in the motion that gets made. And I can certainly help you when the motion is made, depending on what the will is.
And if, for instance, the guest house was not approved, then the other ones kind of become moot, don't they? The expansion of the amount, space, and the encroachment. No, the house still stays, but it just wouldn't be a guest house. Okay. Well,
Right, yeah, all of them would have to be approved to move forward to the minor plat process.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Any other questions? Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Reese, if you'd like to come forward, please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Brumbelow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia 30004. I'm here tonight representing the Wright family and their application for variances to allow a family member to construct a house on their property. Give you a little short synopsis. When they came to us, the original plan was for the son they were going to add on to the existing structure. So when we performed the survey to add on to the existing structure, was going to generate a huge amount of encroachment into the stream buffers. When I discussed this with them, and we sat down with the city staff, Robin, Shuba, and Michael, together, we came up with what we thought was the greatest compromise in this situation. We leave the existing conditions, which were all created prior to being in non-compliance. When the house was built, you were allowed to build in that area as far as with the streams. They constructed the lake. They created that buffer. So it was decided that if we're going to add new construction, let's add new construction that is completely compliant with all the existing city ordinances. So we leave the existing conditions the way they are. We do not add or make a situation worse. We leave it as is, and this allows the son to move on the family property and help take care of his parents as they're entering their older years and allow them to stay on their property. A little short history of the property. This was formerly the Dr. John R. Walker Summit View Farms, kind of a nationally recognized registered Angus cattle farm back in the history of Milton that I'm sure none of you were able to witness, but I was lucky enough to be born here and experienced it. Charles Wright Sr. was Dr. Walker's handyman, go-to fix-it. He lived on this 10-acre parcel in the tenant house there for many years. And at Dr. Walker's passing, it moved into the Wright family. Now the children, Charles Wright Jr. and his sisters, live on this 10-acre parcel. As you're fully aware, you're limited to one house per parcel. So the 10 acres was subdivided amongst the kids, and they each have their parcel. So to allow Charles Wright Jr. to continue living on this property, his son, Charles Wright III, and his partner are proposing to build a new residence to allow his parents to stay on this property that they've been residing on for up to 60 years. As you're fully aware, this 3-acre minimum, or this 3-acre lot, is the minimum lot size on a gravel road. So I don't have the ability to subdivide this property. If I could subdivide the property, I wouldn't be here tonight. If I could add on to the existing house, I wouldn't be here tonight. The reason I'm here is this existing structure becomes a guest house, and the new proposed house becomes the primary structure. In doing that, my grandfathering of the existing conditions go away. My existing house becomes a guest house, which triggers the minimum square footage and the location. Hopefully you guys have ridden by there. Unless you knew this existing house was there, you would drive right by it and never see it. It fits into its area. Like I say, the new house will be, as you'll see on the site plan, is completely compliant with the existing ordinances. So we were, I was very happy, I think staff and all, I want to commend them for working with us to come up with a plan to separate instead of adding on to the existing structure. I personally contacted all the surrounding neighbors, the Shizler Sosbys that purchased the Dinsmore property with the hayfield that I'm sure you're all aware of. They're transitioning from their horse farm in McDonough. They're fine with it. There are multiple family members, and I was promised I was going to get a letter. I did not get a letter. The VRL HOTUS that owns the property in behind, that's in the process of submitting for a subdivision. This would be on the south side of the property. Contacted him, discussed it with him. He has no problem, promised me a letter. I don't have it. The Gaulleys, I did get a letter from. Everyone everyone I spoke with was in favor of it, but I had a very hard time getting the letters back. I submitted them to them. They told me they were fine with it. So this is one case where especially the granting of these variances will allow a long time family to stay in the city of Milton. Let a child help his parents stay on their property. These are existing conditions. I can't imagine that anyone would say this would cause a detriment to the community. This is the very reason that the variance process is in place to overcome the hardships of the strict enforcement of the code when you overlay. It's a little bit technical. It's a chicken and egg. We can't get a minor subdivision plat approved till with any non-compliance. Granting this variance allows me to shift the property lines among the family members to bring everything into compliance. So before a building permit will be issued, everything will go forth and brought into compliance either via moving the property lines or the allowance of the variance. And the variance is for just to allow the existing conditions to become compliant. Thank you. I will try to answer any questions if you have so desire. The Wright family was gracious enough to come tonight. So if there's something I can't answer, hopefully they can. Thank you.
Question for you on the existing wood building accessory structure that's on here.
Yes.
Hypothetically, if that was demolished, would you have to come request all these variances?
It would diminish one, being that accessory structure is in the 75-foot impervious setback. And it is their shop building. It's kind of hard to operate these mini farms without an outbuilding, and we will cure everything except I can't cure the fact that it was built before the requirement that it was a certain distance away from a creek or a lake.
And there's no intention of expanding the existing footprint?
No, sir. That was our original intent. That was going to become a kind of an environmental disaster and nightmare. So this is option B, and it works better. In a perfect world, he would be in the house with his parents for a better care, but that just doesn't work here. So.
Just to clarify, so that existing structure as is the 1733. The way it's written, it says to increase 1733. That just meant beyond a 1500 requirement. Is that right?
Yes.
So it is 1733.
Yeah, it's exactly 7, and that's heated floor space. I mean, we do, we shoot the buildings and dimension them out there. So it's over the 1500 square foot minimum by 233, if my math is correct.
No, I think, no.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support? Opposition? Mr. Reese, if you want to make any closing statements, you're welcome to do that. Thank you. I've got a question for staff. Is there a particular site plan that we should be referencing? And the reason I'm asking the question is under the staff recommendations, we're saying it needs to be similar to what has been proposed.
It's because of the house. The house is not a full plan. That's just an approximation, right? The new house.
Yes.
Right, that would be the problem. Exactly, yeah. So,
Can we narrow it down by
look,
saying the property, the approximate
that's what I would
location of the
do.
property
I would-
lines
yeah,
that are being
I
proposed?
would do it. I mean, I would do it based on basically limiting everything in site plan to be reference the original home. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
Accessory.
And we put substantially conform, just in case something changes during the minor plat process, was our thinking. It didn't have to be exactly.
Right. Well, and my point would be that it would just, you would stick to the original house, that it stays within the footprint based on what's shown in this.
Do we really? Any dates on here?
Oh, you're gonna use this one. It's not gonna be, this is showing, doesn't show the old property line, it shows the new one. See what I mean? It doesn't have to bring it on.
Any additional questions for staff?
Nope.
I will close the public portion of this application and open the floor for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve variance B 22-25 to allow an existing structure to be a future guest house to remain in front of the primary residence, to allow the proposed guest house to increase the heated floor area from 1,500 square feet to 1,733 square feet, to allow a proposed guest house to remain in the city of Milton's 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback, to allow an existing accessory structure to remain in front of a primary house, and to allow the existing accessory structure to remain in the city of Milton's 75-foot impervious setback. The conditions would be that that the proposed guest house, future guest house, whatever you want to call it, would let's see.
Substantially in compliance.
Yeah, it would be substantially compliant and conform with the Brumbelow, Reese and Associates land survey received by the City of Milton Community Development Department on October 3rd, 2022.
And the accessory structure. You said guest house, but then the accessory structure. Then
Well, I don't think it matters at that point,
Oh,
right?
fine.
It's when the property owner. Doesn't matter.
I don't think.
Yeah, and the accessory structure would substantially conform to the same survey.
Very open to that condition. Permits.
Second, are you done?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm not rushing. That's after the minor plot.
Yeah, I mean, do we need to reference the property line change? I mean, because that's, if we approve the variance, the next step would be to move the property line, right?
That's part of the proposed conditions that staff recommended.
Yep, it is.
All right. To amend my motion, I would add the recommendation that a minor plat substantially similar to the site plan shown in the previously referenced survey received on October 3rd, 2022, be recorded prior to the issuance of any other permits on both properties.
Second. Sorry. Got a little reading to do.
Gotta repeat all that?
I wouldn't repeat it. I would just say,
Ditto, no.
Petition number V 22-25 with a property address of 14328 and 14330 Phillips Circle. To allow an existing structure to be a future guest house and to remain in front of the proposed primary house. Second variance is to allow a proposed guest house to increase the heated floor area from 1,500 square feet to 1,733 square feet. The third variance is to allow a proposed guest house to remain in the city of Milton's 50-foot stream buffer and 75-foot impervious setback. The fourth variance is to allow an existing accessory structure to remain in the front of a primary house. And the fifth variance is to allow the existing accessory structure to remain in the city of Milton 75-foot impervious setback with the following conditions. The property shall substantially conform to the site plan showing the proposed lot line changes from Brumbelow, Reese and Associates received on October 3rd, 2022 by the Community Development Department. And the second condition is a minor plat similar to the site plan that's showing the proposed lot line changes from Brumbelow, Reese and Associates received on October 3rd by the Community Development Department must be recorded prior to the issuance of any community development permits for both properties. Open it up for discussion.
yeah, under the circumstances, I do feel like this would not offend the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I feel like there are extraordinary circumstances with this piece of property. Under the circumstances that there is an unnecessary hardship due to the size, shape, topography here, and there is no substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties based on the testimony, and then the public safety, health, and welfare is secured and substantial justice is done. I feel it meets all four criteria here.
No comments?
I agree with the comments that Adam made in terms of following the four criteria in order to approve a variance. We certainly had a large number of variances to consider and approve. There was some overlapping within those variances, but I think substantial justice is being achieved by approving this variance or these five variances.
Agreed. I would just add that, you know, this structure has been there for a very long time. So the non-compliance is relief is not really a factor. It's been there for so long. So personally, I'm happy to see a family that's been here this long, using the guest house ordinance to accommodate family members, which is a great thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to move the property line than it is to actually go in there and demo. an
Well, it's a
existing
really
structure.
cool barn if you
Mhm.
look at it. And I'm really
There's-
jealous
yeah.
of the metal water trough. So
Mhm.
if you ever need to get rid of that, I'll take it.
Okay. Any other further discussion on that? Paul, would you like me to read all that again, or can I just raise that for a vote?
I'm happy if you go ahead and just proceed to a vote.
Okay. All those in favor of approving V 22-25 as previously stated with the five variances and the two conditions, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening. Item 7 on our agenda is consideration of appeals and secondary variances.
None.
Item 8 is old business.
None.
Item 9, draft of the 2023 calendar.
Yeah, feel free to give me some take on the calendar that you see before you. In November and December, I bumped the meetings back a week due to the holidays. And we also, I just went off of what Shuba did for DRB, which isn't related to you all, but those were changed for spring and fall break, I believe.
Spring break.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Joe, look at the school calendar for
Yeah.
spring break and fall break
Yeah.
and.
Job.
right. Shuba was on top of that. But we can, this is going to be preliminary if you want to take it in or, you know,
Yeah.
we can make it official next month if you want to think it over.
Yeah, if everyone's okay, let's just look at it and then vote on
Yeah.
it next
Yeah.
week, if you guys are okay
That
with it.
works.
Or next week, next month.
If Zach had any comments, we can see it next time.
Yeah.
Before we
I don't
close-
plan that far ahead.
Can we take this home?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yours.
Okay.
As long as you write draft on it,
The
big
rest of the
letters.
stuff we can't. That's the only reason I asked.
Okay.
One of the things is if they don't move the meetings around, when it comes to spring break or something like that, we'll have a bunch of deferrals to the following meeting.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't watermark that draft, so be careful.
I was just checking when you needed to elect officers, but it's the first meeting of the year rather than, oh, God. So bear that in mind, not next month, but the month after that.
But yeah, thank you for thinking on your feet, everyone. You know, when we
Well,
went
thank
down,
you.
and
That was great.
live and
Lots-
learn.
Good job.
Yep.
What do we have next month?
2 cases,
Okay, good.
yeah, less than 4, so.
item 10 on our agenda,
It's already got it in his mouth.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
we had a motion from David and a second from Adam to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Good evening.